Hello and welcome to Experience Fulton the Podcast. I'm Regina Waller, Division Manager, Communications and External Affairs for Fulton County. This podcast will not only provide you with information regarding the services and products that Fulton County has to offer, but we'll give you a close-up look into the department and the people who bring you those services. Welcome to Experience Fulton the Podcast. I'm Regina Waller, Communications Division Manager in External Affairs, and this episode is going to be an education for me as well as to our listeners and our viewers. Just want to start out by letting you know that there is a grant coming to provide resources to help solve crimes in Fulton County. Let me tell you a little bit more. U.S. Senator John Ossoff fought for funding to help the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office identify unidentified and missing persons through forensic testing. We'll learn more about that here soon. Jimmy Sadler, the chief investigator here at the Medical Examiner's Office, is the one responsible for bringing this $362,000 grant here to Fulton County to help identify the unidentified and missing persons, to help bring closure to family members. So we just first want to say thank you so much for joining us on Experience Fulton the Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, it is great to have you here to talk about this particular grant. Let's just jump right into it. Tell us about why even work to bring a grant to the Medical Examiner's Office.
So we have several unidentified decedents or remains, however you want to word that. So we don't, the county doesn't have, or this office doesn't have the funding to take all those cases and do forensic genetic genealogy. And even if we take those cases and we can refer them to the FBI to extract DNA to load into CODIS, so I reached out to Senator Ossoff during that grant funding period, applied for the grant to help us with the forensic genetic genealogy. And I'm going to use FGG from here on. So we have, approximately, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but 140 cases of unidentified remains that this funding will help us hopefully identify at least 25.
Wow.
I know doesn't sound like a whole lot, but a lot of our cases are also in CODIS, and that's how one of the things that we're going to use, that the cases that are not in the CODIS will be the cases that we will refer or use the private lab to do the FGG.
Investigator Sadler, you mentioned FGG. Can you tell us a little bit about what type of testing that is and how it's going to help identify remains?
So a private lab, we will use a bone, or we can even use a blood spot card. But we'll send to the private lab, and they will create a profile. It's called a SNP profile. Mm-hmm. So they create the profile, and then they load that profile into a public genealogy database, such as GEDmatch or Family Tree DNA. So once that profile is created, it goes into those databases. Then the public who do these ancestry DNA, Ancestry and Me and stuff, then sometimes they'll load theirs up into those public databases. Well, then our lab runs with that. They work together, and if they get a hit, then the genealogist will start creating a family tree. Wow. To search for relatives.
So you mentioned that, currently you all have over 100 unidentified cases, and that this grant will possibly help you to identify the remains of at least 25. Can you talk to us about how old are some of these cases?
Our earliest case, or our oldest case, is July 1970. So we have several cases that date back to 70. 70 is our oldest case. Gotcha. And then our newest case is, was just this year. So we try to, do what we can with, going local, and hopefully that we find family, because some folks will say, I know that person, but then if we run into the wall, then this is what we need to use, and it costs so much. We're looking at $10,000 to do testing
per
case.
Okay, per case. Okay.
So, and like I say, this funding is just a major thing for this office, that hopefully we can find these families, get their names back, get them back to their family, and then give them the proper burial or the dignity that they deserve. And we have a lot of cases that once we create, our policy is once we get a DNA profile, whether it be through one of our other labs or through the FBI, then we will bury that person. No one gets cremated. So we bury that person and give them, some kind of, dignity and respect to give them that proper burial. And then once, but we have a lot of cases here that we've not been able to get a profile, that, we want to give them that respect, and it's the ethical thing to do.
Before we had an opportunity to sit down and talk about the grant, we were, getting prepared for this particular podcast. You mentioned a case in 1996. You guys have used this testing recently, correct, to help solve a case. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, so in 1996, April 1996, in 1996 the Olympics came to Atlanta, but 96, a gentleman was set on fire and made it to the hospital, but died from his injuries. He was never, during his responsive time, he was not able to provide a name. So he came into us as unidentified, or John Doe. So in 2024, I think we started working on this. 24 or 25, we started working with the DNA Doe Project and National Geographic, because they wanted to do a documentary. But the DNA Doe Project, we got a profile. It was loaded in. And matched with some family here in Atlanta. And we spoke with the family. Then we ended up doing another DNA test, which came back that was a sibling, and we got the gentleman identified, and his name was David Eubanks Brown. So from 1996 to 2025, he had no name.
Wow, and you brought closure to him and to his family. That's outstanding.
Yes, and not to, we were able to do that, for the family, and APD, reopened the case. And I think they may have leads. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but opened up the case to try to, close that cold case out as their homicide, or however they rule it.
I've just got to tell our listeners and our viewers, Chief Investigator Sadler is a man of few words, all about action. From the time that, I had an opportunity to chat with him. I met him a couple of months ago through email, but then we had an opportunity to talk. But for this gentleman to include in his everyday work the time to sit down and put together this grant to get this funding shows his commitment and his dedication. Mm. And I just want to say that's so innovative and outstanding of you. And, if I could give him applause right now, I would. I know he's, as I mentioned, a man of few words and doesn't too much, I think, want to be celebrated, but you should be celebrated for what you've done. So, because you are bringing closure to families, and that, above all, to me, in listening to you, seems to be the most important piece here for you.
Thank you.
So, tell us before, we wrap things up with you, what is the next step now that, we're going to get the funding here eventually. And so the next step for you is to bring someone in to basically begin the work, correct?
Yes. So the funding will help. I'll break it down. So some of the funding is for the testing and for a part-time grant employee.
Gotcha.
And some of that, and then also it was included in the fundings if we have to exhume any of those, because a lot of DNA breaks down. It does break down; it becomes inconclusive, and they can't create that. So we may even have to exhume some decedents to send. Hopefully we get bone and send it. Get that profile that way. So once that money comes in, or we starts to get the funding, then we'll hire someone to assist with that. That will pretty much oversee the project of working the cases. I mean, we won't hand it off to them. I'll work with them on what cases that need to be. And the cases that we're going to be choosing will be the cases that are not into CODIS. CODIS is a federal database where people's DNA, and it's run constantly with other DNA. So I want to my goal is to the decedents that are not in CODIS or doesn't have a profile at one of the other labs. I want to work with them to get those identified. So back to as soon as we see the funding, we get a person in, we can get started, and hopefully we can start getting these identified.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you and congratulations again on the work that you put behind this grant. And we are looking forward to the work that comes out of the grant funding. And so can we come back and talk to you about that when that gets underway?
We can talk about it.
We can talk about it. All right. But I just want to say thank you so much for Chief Investigator Jimmy Sadler for joining us here on Experience Fulton the Podcast. Keep it tuned here for more information.
Thanks for having me.
We're here at the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office getting some details and learning more about a grant that is coming to help solve cases and solve crimes here in Fulton County. As I've mentioned before, federal funding, more than $362,000 that will come in to help identify unidentified and missing persons. Here in the Medical Examiner's Office, more than 100 unidentified cases. However, with this funding, the office is looking to at least reduce that by 25. And so when that funding is in place, there will be genealogy testing to assist with these identification of these missing persons. But once those identifications are made, it will be time to reach out to the families. So talking to us about that is Ms. Christine Simonis, who is the senior investigator here and for the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
So we're going to get you a little bit closer there to the microphone because we want to make sure we hear your information. So once this testing is done and we've started to make identifications, the Medical Examiner's Office will then move into place to begin to reach out to the families. Can you talk to us a little bit about that particular process?
Sure. So once identification is established, it is our responsibility to look for a legal next of kin, which would be either the parents, the spouse, or the children of the decedent, or a sibling. And we have access to a law enforcement database called Accurant. So we will enter the decedent's name and date of birth and look for any relatives. And we'll notify them that way, let them know that their loved one has been in our office and that we were able to identify them through genealogy. And the process can begin with them claiming the remains and and making funeral arrangements for them.
Talk about being able to help families get that closure. What does that mean to you? This is because in listening to you speak earlier, this is more than a job. You guys are just out here helping people. What does it mean to be able to provide that closure for families?
It's an honor for us, really. This job is not for everyone, but those of us who do take pride in being here, it's an honor for us to serve our community, and it's an honor for us to bring justice to the decedents and to bring that closure to the families. Right. Absolutely.
So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. And you talk about bringing closure and it being an honor. And it was an honor for us to be able to sit here and talk with you about the next step once the grant is in place. We're looking forward to the work that's being done and also hearing how you all have helped the families to be able to move to that next level. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And just a reminder to you all that this is a grant, more than $362,000 that will help to, again, solve cases here in Fulton County. The medical examiner's office, this office is responsible for post-mortem and examinations. They will also provide information to the family. But if you want to learn more about the medical examiner's office or even other information that Fulton County has to offer, be sure to check out our website at www.fultoncountyga.gov. And we just say thank you for joining us for this episode of Experience Fulton, the podcast.